The last live show of the year, and we have a special guest, very special guest, calling in from the West Coast. I'm happy that he woke up so early to speak with us. Lieutenant General Thomas G. McInerney, who will talk a little bit about our friend, a friend of the John Fredericks Radio Network, and a friend of Colonel Mike, who always came on the show for me, who just passed away on December 12th, Admiral James Ace Lyons, Jr. General McInerney, welcome to the John Fredericks Radio Network. You're on with Colonel Mike.
Delighted to be on with you, Colonel Mike. Thanks for having me.
Sir, I'm so happy that we got in touch with you, and I wanted to have you on to give us a little background and your friendship and relationship with Ace Lyons, who was a close friend of yours over the years. Why don't you tell the listeners to the show what kind of a man he was? I knew him. Maybe you'd like to expand on it, sir.
Well, I first met Admiral Lyons 41 years ago. He was a one-star admiral on the Joint Staff. I was a Air Force full colonel on the Secretary of Defense's staff, working for the advisor on NATO affairs. Mm-hmm. And Admiral Lyons was playing a major role in the NATO summit that we were preparing for. And so I worked for him about a year. Then we kind of went into a blank period. He became a four-star admiral, going up to be Second Fleet Commander, then the Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet, the largest military organization in the U.S. military, and maybe in the world, as a matter of fact.
How many ships? Sir, how many ships were in that fleet?
Oh, he had 300,000 people in the fleet, and in those days, he probably had well over 300 ships.
Oh my God, amazing!
It was a massive organization at the height of the Cold War, mm-hmm. and he was doing very innovative tactics as the Second Fleet Commander up in Norway, and then clearly innovative tactics in the Pacific off Kamchatka, Russia, etc. So, unfortunately, I became the commander in Alaska about 8 months after he had retired, but we had the same thoughts of things that went on. Now, when I retired as the number 3 man in the Air Force, called the Assistant Vice Chief in those days, Admiral Lyons and I got together again through a combination of factors, mostly in the media area. Mm-hmm. We were both doing Fox News, and when 9/11 kicked off, we became very, very involved in how you defeat radical Islam and calling it for what it was. Admiral Lyons was one of the foremost thought leaders in the U.S. military on active duty and when he retired. His retired career may have been even more distinguished with the things that he participated in and the leadership that he gave the American military and the American public in general, because he had a weekly op-ed with the Washington Times for so many years. And then the Canadian Free Press had him, and he was always on radio, television. And as you know, Colonel Mike, he was on whenever you needed him.
He was a great gentleman. He was a great guest. We had very open conversations. I learned a lot from his conversation. And I really must say he was a very cordial, very generous man in giving his time to the nation. Very, very big patriot in my eyes. A big loss to our country, And he doesn't even get like a tinkle of praise in the press here in the Washington metro area. I mean, if you look at what happened with Khashoggi, the amount of promotion they gave some Muslim Brotherhood journalist, and here's a distinguished man, like you say, an admiral who served his country honorably and served after he retired. You're shocked. You say, where are we? Are we still in the same country? General, it's mind-boggling to me. But please continue, because this is a memorial from me and you to Admiral Lyons on the show. Go ahead, sir.
Well, he played such a prominent role in helping to analyze for the American people what the real facts were and his death he was 91 years old. He was still very active. I saw him 2 days before he died, and was probably the last non-family member to see him and visit with him, and he was still strong and robust. But what he provided us was an insight to the complexities of the world that we live in. Now, the mainstream media that you're talking about did not like Admiral Lyons, and they do not like me, because we were telling the American people what the real facts were, why we should be in Syria or why we should not be. He did not get a chance to weigh in on that, but I will weigh in on that for him. The decision by President Trump was the right one.
Thank you, sir.
We had 2,000 to 2,300 people over there. They're not having a major impact. They are having a certain influence. Moving back into Iraq, as President Trump said in his recent visit there, we can do the same thing we need to do to protect the Kurds and to work out those issues. The fact is we have gotten sucked in and doing the work that other people ought to be doing to contain radical Islam, to contain the Muslim Brotherhood, to do those things that people like Khashoggi, who are writing for the Washington Post, but really selling the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a radical Islamic group and should be outlawed in the United States. Admiral Lyons strongly felt that, as do I, and the reason is because they are radical Islamic, and the American people need to know what they are doing and why they should not be allowed to be in the United States. And the Congress started to take some action on it, but like so many things as Congress has done, they haven't stood up, and it's going to get even worse with Nancy Pelosi coming in. But Admiral Lyons explained these people and the merits of the argument, why certain groups shouldn't be here, why the threat that we're facing from radical Islam is so dangerous to the United States, but also strongly supporting the President Trump's new national defense strategy of talking about peer threats such as Russia, such as China, such as Iran, such as North Korea, why we must be prepared for them rather than for what we have done for the last 17 years, chasing with lawyers always looking over their shoulder as we try to attack and destroy radical Islam. You saw what President Trump has done in 2 years. He has virtually wiped out ISIS. They are not going to spring back like they did when we pulled out of Iraq, when President Obama pulled out precipitously in Iraq. We had to come out, but the fact is ISIS is back on their heels. We can strike them with our asymmetric advantage, air power, precision air power. And Colonel Mike, we can put it in the right window, the left window, wherever we need it, and we need to do that. We need to get the lawyers out of that war, and we need to continue to prosecute it like President Trump has done. And the fact is this president has taken on some roles of changing the way we do things that I think, and I know Admiral Lyons did, are extremely important, and he was a very strong supporter of the changes that President Trump is bringing about, to include the false Russian narrative of Russian collusion was set up by the Obama administration. They politicized the intelligence community, the CIA, the FBI, and they still have not resolved this problem. And it's a shame that America and the world has had to go through it. But I believe it is going to come to an end soon, and the American people are going to get the full facts. Now, what we haven't done is we have not gone through the Clinton Foundation and see the corruption that went on in the corruption in the Clinton Foundation. And all those things that Admiral Lyons and myself and others have been trying to point out to the American people. Yet the American mainstream media has been complicit in this cover-up, as has Democratic members of the Congress. They have been complicit in this cover-up and this false narrative of Russian collusion. It must stop.
You know what, General? You know what Admiral Lyons said on the show one time? I remember he said, "Look, Mike, let's cut to the chase." He said, "Islam is not a religion; it's an ideology." Okay, and he said the sooner the American people pick up on this, the better off we're going to be. And I have it on YouTube somewhere on a clip. But now that our good friend and this patriot is gone, I would like to invite you, Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney, to continue, and you'll be invited to come onto the John Fredericks Radio Network and have a discussion with Colonel Mike when I'm on. From time to time, if you're available, I'll invite you, and you could pick up the mantle for where Admiral Lyons left.
Well, I'll always be available for you, Colonel Mike. Keep that mantle going, because what Admiral Lyons was doing for all of us and for the American people, you were getting the straight truth with no bark on the tree. He took off all the fancy words and all that, and he told the American people exactly what it is. Islam is an ideology. 85% of it is ideology, and 15% is religion. And so he said these things, and he told them, as distasteful as it may be to the mainstream media and the liberal left, who are trying to change this nation. And he told it just like it was and what it should be. And what religion would condone people blowing themselves up and becoming a shaheed, a martyr, because they killed 200 innocent Israeli women or children, or Afghan women or children? That's not a religion. That's an ideology, and it ought to be called out for what it is. Admiral Lyons was one of the foremost experts in understanding that and explaining to the American people that that was not a religion. You cannot commit suicide and kill people and call that a religion. No religion has ever existed like that. They call them shaheeds and martyrs and say they get 72 virgins. Please, wake up, America.
General Thomas McInerney, I want to thank you, sir, for coming on and giving a tribute to our friend Admiral Lyons. Will you be going to the memorial?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, sir.
11 January, 11 o'clock.
See you then. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much,
Have
Colonel
a good
Mike.
day. Happy New Year, sir.
Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.